little bit of time. All right. Well, since I'm actually going to talk about commercial real estate today, I figured I'd answer a couple of the questions I get asked a lot. And then I tell you what the typical answers are, and I'd also translate those answers for you. So, any real estate agent will tell you that they almost daily they get asked, so how are things? And the typical agent will tell you, things are good. They're great. They're getting better. Fantastic. Well, what they're really saying is, things suck. Things suck. They're getting worse. Things really suck. So, now, but seriously, are deals getting done? Yes, deals are getting done. How are deals getting done? A lot of hard work, some creativity on all parties, on the side of all parties involved. So that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today is what it takes from all the parties and how you can refer these parties to me. Now, on the buyer, let's just face it, the buyer needs money now. The days of a buyer working with the seller and the bank to get some sort of 100% deal done, they're pretty much over. So I need a buyer that's going to have a little bit of money, put some skin in the game when it comes to a deal. And those type of buyers I'm looking for, if I come over here to my board that I brought, I need buyers with cash. Cash is king right now. If they got cash, they can get a deal done. Great cash buyers are people that are involved in a 1031 exchange. I've talked about 1031 before. What 1031 is, it's a way to defer the capital gains tax. If somebody has a $500,000 building that they paid $200,000 for, they've got $300,000 in capital gains when they sell it. Now they can defer that tax if they roll that over into another purchase that they identify in a certain time frame. So, and banks view that 1031 money as cash, so it's a great way to automatically put equity in a deal. It's easier to get those deals done. So if you know people in those positions, please send them my way. I'm also looking for medical doctors, physicians, anybody else in the a medical field, because the banks really like to do those deals right now because they're typically owner occupants. They occupy most of the space. If there's other spaces involved where they would rent those out, plus their profession is fairly recession proof. And second to that, legal and accounting, same type of deal. Banks like to do those deals, not quite as much as they like to do the physicians, but they do like to do the legal and accounting deals. So if you know people in those fields who maybe are currently leasing and they want to own a building, they would be great referrals for me. And then I'm still looking for those hotel owners and operators. So if you know people in that field, please refer them to me. From the seller side, I'm looking for motivated sellers. These are people that want to sell their building and are willing to get creative with the buyer and work and think a little outside the box and work with a potential buyer. Maybe by doing some seller financing. Maybe they'll take a second position on a loan to the bank, so that reduces the amount of money that the buyer has to come up with, pay to the bank. It reduces the amount of money the bank has to make on the loan, and so it makes it easier for the bank to make that loan. What's another great thing that a seller can do to help a buyer is do a lease option. Because a lot of times what banks want to see now is experience in owning the building or owning the type of business that's going to be in the building. A lot of these first-time business owners, they don't have that experience yet, so they're having a real tough time getting financing. But if they can find a seller that's willing to negotiate a price now on what they'll pay in the future, and then that buyer can pay that seller rent for the next 2, 3, 5 years, and they'll be able to then, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Like I said, they'll be able to pay the rent, and a lot of times there'll be a rental credit. And so now they're going to start building up equity that gets applied towards the final purchase price of the building. And the banks, at the end of the day, when they buy the building, it's easier for the bank to make the loan because there's built-in equity, and then the purchaser has that experience needed, owning and operating in the success of the building. So it's a win-win for everybody. And lastly, today I'm going to talk a little bit about banks. I'm going to poke a little bit of fun at the banks, but seriously, I do like to work with the banks. Now, the thing with banks is, where I come from, when I was in the corporate world, we like to, I was a level 1 person. That's where I started out. And then if I got promoted, I became a 2. And I made another promotion, I became a 3. That was my title. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you make management, you get letters. I'm L, K. And if you got really big, if you got an M, you were huge. If you were an M level manager, that was it. But now I'm in this field, real estate, and dealing with these banks, and these banks, they like these important titles. They're directors, they're managers, they're VPs, everybody's a vice president of something. And so I'm looking.
I'm not.
Well, you will be soon. So I'm looking for banks with REO, which stands for real estate owned. And the sad fact of things is banks own a lot of real estate right now. And I want to help the banks get rid of that real estate so we can help turn this economy around. But before I get into that, I want to go back to sellers for a second. If you know of anybody who might be facing foreclosure, who has a building, and maybe they're in trouble, please put them in contact with me. I'd like to help them with that situation. The banks honestly don't want to foreclose on these buildings. If you put them in contact with me, we can put it on the market. We can see if we can get it sold before it gets foreclosed on. I can talk to the bankers, and the banks might be willing to work with me to help sell their building so they don't have to foreclose on it. It's one less headache for the bank. So if you know people in that situation, put them in contact with me. I'd like to try to help. But going back to the banks, they do have a lot of foreclosures, and they're always in their REO department. But they have a lot of different. I've noticed banks have a lot of different names for these departments now. I've noticed banks start calling caustic assets, which is easy enough to figure out just because it's costing the bank money to have these things. So if you know a VP of caustic asset at a bank, send them my way. This used to be my favorite title. Some banks are calling them toxic asset. So now you've got the VP of toxic asset. You know, when I first thought, I was like, isn't that the janitor? But but now it's actually, they're in their foreclosure department. So if you know a VP of toxic asset at a bank, have them give me a call. Now, some other banks have started more recently calling it other real estate owned. So now I'm looking for the VP of other real estate owned, but it's not O-REO, it's O-REO. So I'm looking for the VP of Oreo at a bank. So if you know Cookie Monster who works at a bank, send them Monster my way. That's my talk. Is there any questions? Jim. I am licensed in Illinois. I can help people in Illinois.
You like to stick just in the St. Louis region, like you ever do at Columbia, or just mainly St. Louis?
I'll go to Columbia and outside the St. Louis metro area on a case-by-case basis.
What kind of deals are closing now, John?
Well, the ones I outlined, ones with lots of cash involved in them. The 20%, where a buyer even comes in with just 20% of the deal, we're having a tough time getting those done too, because the banks just they're very risk adverse right now. So if the less risk that a bank has to do to make their loan, the easier it is going to be to get the deal done. So 30, 40% is even more typical. I've seen banks require 50%. It's cash, 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 cash. Any other questions?
They're still doing 504 program.
504 programs, those are still getting done. A lot of bankers like to talk up the 504 program on SBA, and it's a great program. There's a big backlog, and that's the other thing I forgot to mention, was that on a seller's standpoint, the seller's got to understand that that deals are just taking longer to get done now. And even the SBA loans, they've got over a 90-day backlog. So even after we get a deal, and to go through that financing contingency, it's going to take over 90 days in the 504 program. Is there any other questions? Thanks, guys.
Yeah, he did it.
Hi. My name's Joseph Ford. You can find me on the web at www.josephford.com. Thanks for watching.